Welcome to the Wolverine Digest Podcast, the best spot for objective and authentic coverage of Michigan athletics. If you want open dialogue, honest opinions, and in-depth coverage of the maize and blue, this is the podcast for you. And now, here's your host, Brandon Brown, joined as always by Chris Breiler.
I was going to start by saying go blue.
And you know what?
No music.
I'm not playing the victors today, dude. I can't. It feels a little off. I know Michigan beat the absolute shit out of Michigan State, and that felt awesome.
God damn it.
And this is our first show since then because it was like, fade this intro music out. I had someone coming for our necks on Twitter. Not really. They were joking about it, but they were like, where were you guys on Saturday? I was so looking forward to it. It was like midnight by the time we got out of the press conference, and then we still had to drive home. So anyway, we didn't do a post-game show. That's not all that abnormal for night games. We just get out of there so late. So this is our first show since then, and we will have a slight interjection about Michigan State if that, if the time presents itself. But the main thing that we're going to be talking about is this sign stealing thing that, I mean, you and I have not talked about this. I don't know if we're in the same exact headspace with it. I know where I'm at, and it's not good. And you were going to do kind of a timeline or a point-by-point breakdown of what's happened since this all came out last week, Wednesday or Thursday, whenever it was.
Yeah, I just feel like it'd be good to sort of set the stage because I feel like there's been so much that's been reported. And for anybody, I can't imagine anybody that's tuning in is casual at this point, but I think it'd be a good just refresher to sort of go back where it started and kind of how we got to where we are today before we start the conversation today. So I'll just start it off. I'm going to read through it. I'll go through it as fast as I can. But last Thursday, the first report came out from Yahoo Sports. Yahoo Sports reported that the Michigan football program was being investigated by the NCAA for an elaborate sign stealing scheme. Shortly after that Yahoo Sports report came out, the Big Ten notified all of Michigan's future opponents, including Michigan State, Penn State, and Ohio State, about the investigation and issued the following statement. This is from the Big Ten. So it said, late Wednesday afternoon, the Big Ten Conference and University of Michigan were notified by the NCAA that the NCAA was investigating allegations of sign stealing by the University of Michigan football program. The Big Ten Conference has notified Michigan State University and future opponents. The Big Ten Conference considers the integrity of the competition to be of the utmost importance and will continue to monitor the investigation. The conference will have no further comment at this time. So that was on Thursday. And then late Thursday, actually, I think into the wee early hours of the morning on Friday, an ESPN report came out that indicated Connor Stalions, who's a low-level, I think, recruiting staffer, to be at the heart of the NCAA's investigation. The NCAA had reason to believe that Stalions was responsible for what was described as a vast network of individuals who were scouting future opponents in person. And then on Friday, the University of Michigan officially announced that Stalions was suspended with pay. And that brings us to today, Monday, with ESPN's latest reporting that suggests the NCAA now has evidence that Stalions purchased tickets for at least 30 games over the last 3 seasons for future Michigan opponents, along with video evidence of at least one individual in the seat that Stalions purchased recording video. Additionally, and this is crazy to me when I read this, I couldn't believe it, Stalions purchased 2 tickets for the Penn State-Ohio State game last weekend, and both seats remained empty last weekend, which to me is not a great sign. No. But we'll elaborate on that a little bit further. The Athletic is also reporting that Connor Stalions bought tickets at opposing stadiums for non-Michigan games over the past 3 seasons, including this season, and that some of those tickets were purchased under the names of his family members. The Athletic went on to report that a source at one Big Ten school found in-stadium surveillance footage that showed the person sitting in the seat bought by Stalions holding a smartphone pointed at the home team sideline, seemingly recording signs the whole game, and that Michigan is expected to receive that evidence this week. So that's where we're at right now. that's a lot to digest, I think, if you're a Michigan fan. And again, I already see some of it today that, the instinct by some within the fan base is to just come out and call bullshit and to sort of push back on it. But I think at this point, a real conversation needs to be had about, there's different angles to look at this. Is what happened, illegal as it pertains to the NCAA and the bylaws? Are there some loopholes there? How are you feeling about it as a Michigan fan? And I think that's the approach that Brandon and I are going to take today, is just sort of, walk through it, because as he said in the initial part of this, we haven't really discussed it all that much with each other. This is sort of our first time, but I figured let's get on and do what we always do, Brandon, that's why we're doing it an hour early, because the news broke today, but we thought we'd hop on and just sort of have an open conversation and try to make sense of it all. So Brandon, hearing all of that, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, at this point, I'm 95% sure that Michigan broke a lot of rules and they're probably going to get in trouble. I think at this point, best case scenario is to hope and pray that the NCAA or whoever's doing the investigation still can't quite prove that the people at the games and the videos that were recorded were never given to the Michigan staffers and were never used. And that I think, short of proving that, if the NCAA can't prove that, I'm not really sure if they can get in trouble for what's been shown so far. I mean, at this point, dude, 30 different games, 11 different stadiums, video evidence of guys in the stands, and the seats that he bought for this past weekend's game were empty in light of him being suspended and being like, oh shit, yeah, we can't do that anymore. So I'm just not going to sit here and say I still need some. No, this is the evidence, guys. This is it. This is the evidence that Chris and I talked about wasn't there last week. But the way that in the letter of the law, if they still can't prove, it's just like any kind of crime or anything. Every single sign along the way can point to wrongdoing, but unless you have concrete evidence that actually happened, you can't just say, well, it probably did. I mean, clearly it did. Well, clearly and probably doesn't work unless you can prove it. And honestly, if you're a Michigan fan, that's all you can hope for at this point, because this is bad. It's bad. I don't know how I see people in the comments saying, he's a G, he found a loophole. No, he didn't. No, he just got busted is what happened. There's no loophole. I thought maybe there was a loophole because there's some other bylaws that specifically mention on-staff employees, or there's a couple different terms that they use. Basically, you have to be paid by Michigan, but
there's a gray area
for the in-person, off-campus, in-person scouting of future opponents is prohibited. It doesn't say by who. It doesn't say who can and can't go. It says you can't do it. That's pretty black and white. That's why I said, until they prove that what those dudes were doing there directly impacted what Michigan was doing on the field, or there was a direct giving of that information or that video to Connor Stallions or to somebody who is paid by Michigan, that's the last hope at this point, if you want Michigan to try to skirt this and get out of this without getting in trouble. Because every single other thing that's happened is pretty much proven at this point that they were doing something they shouldn't be doing. I mean, I don't know how you can find anything else other than that based on what just came out today. Last week, I wasn't ready to say that. I wasn't there yet. Today I'm there. They did something wrong. Now they just have to prove it. And if they can't prove it, then they can't prove it. That doesn't make me feel any better about it, because I'm 95% sure at this point that they were doing something they shouldn't have been doing. Whether you think the rule's stupid or not, whether you think it's antiquated, whether you think it was put in place because of cost-cutting situations, doesn't matter. They shouldn't have been doing it. And if they should have been, if it was okay, then those tickets from this weekend wouldn't have been empty and Connor Stallions wouldn't be suspended with pay.
Yeah, that's where I'm at, is the fact that those two seats that he purchased over the weekend were empty. That to me is an indication that you knew you were doing something you shouldn't do. I'm so all over the map on this. I desperately want none of this to be true, accurate. I don't think any of us want it to be a thing. But yeah, I think it's pretty clear at this point that at least some people or one person on the staff was doing something, skirting the rules. And, the NCAA has been looking for a reason to get Harbaugh. And I think they finally have it. And unless there's some weird turn in this at the last minute in Michigan's favor, it just kind of feels like it's headed towards some sort of punishment coming for Michigan that feels like it's going to be significant. Based on what was reported today, and again, we got to wait for all the facts to come out and we'll see what actually comes from it. And Michigan's supposed to get that evidence this week. They're talking about this goes back, 2.5 seasons, including this season. You're talking 2021, 2022 opponents this season, and I know a lot of people were using, what happened with Baylor, where a staffer got caught, attending one game in person and there was a 1-game suspension. Well, we're talking about
half game
game suspension. We're talking about, at least 30 games over the course of 2.5 years. And when you heard the term vast network, and we all kind of, raised our eyebrow and sort of joked it off as like, well, how can one person be a vast network? Well, I think today, the report by ESPN sort of brought some clarity to that, kind of what we thought would be the case, multiple individuals, different individuals attending games. And I think that this is where Stallion's laptop is going to come into play and what those communications looked like. He certainly wasn't going out of his way to cover his tracks as far as using his name to purchase these tickets. So I can't imagine that he was also doing a really good job covering his tracks in terms of the electronic communication and what he was receiving. At the end of the day, look, man, I feel bad for the players. I feel real bad for the players because they had to start off this season without Jim Harbaugh on the sideline because of the recruiting violations. So there's already the NCAA investigation there. Jesus Christ, would you not do it? Get the hell out of here. All I wanted was a glass of wine.
The wine just comes into the frame.
Trying to be serious here. They had to start off the season, the first 3 games without their head coach, an NCAA investigation about recruiting violations, all that BS to start the year. And then here you are after week 8, a perfect 8-0. You're looking like a legitimate national championship contender, arguably the best team in the country, Heisman front runner and JJ McCarthy. And the national conversation is once again centered around, some potentially illegal scouting scheme that calls into question the success, not just of this year, but of the last 2 years. And I feel bad for these guys because at the end of the day, none of this was necessary to Michigan's success. I don't believe that what was happening here, what Stalions was involved in, was critical to Michigan being able to make the turnaround that they made in 2021 and 2022 and what we see this year. But there's a lot of people drawing that connection. And I think regardless of what happens from here on out, that's the narrative now with this Michigan football team is that, well, it makes sense now. That jump from 2020 to 2021, where it looked like Harbaugh was on his way out 2-4 a year. The very next year, you go and win the Big Ten championship, beat the shit out of Ohio State. You do it again the following year. Now it all makes sense because this shit was going on behind the scenes. So no matter what happens, that's going to be the narrative. And I feel terrible for these players because this is a phenomenal football team, arguably the best team in the country. And I don't know how it's going to play out for them. I'm not sure what the result is going to be this year, but it's certainly, as a fan and as somebody who covers the team, it feels like some of the shine's being taken off. Like, I don't feel like I'm sitting here after beating the shit out of Ohio State 49-0, 8-0 going into the bye week. I don't have that good, warm and fuzzy feeling about how the rest of the season's played out. I'm a little concerned.
Yeah. So, I mean, couple things I'm going to try to address as best I can. I mean, Chris and I aren't exactly experts on this situation. We're gathering a lot of this information as a lot of you are, but there are some things that we know. First of all, Connor Stalions, yes, was hired officially by the program in I think May or March of 2022. I can't remember the month. Last year. But he had been helping the Michigan program for several, maybe even close to a decade at this point. I mean, he was at the Naval Academy, but he would come back to Michigan during the offseason and help out with stuff. And he was very close with a lot of the staffers and the coaches. And so that part is also like, people are like, well, he wasn't even there until 2020. No, he was there. I don't know in what capacity. We have no idea to know if any of this was even close to going on past 2021. But he has been around the program for a lot longer than just the last year and a half. So that's one part. People saying, I saw somebody saying, this all sounds crazy. My cell phone doesn't even last for 10 minutes. Like, guys, if you're going to go to that as your reason why this isn't happening, then again, I think you're just, people don't want, look, I don't want this to be true. Chris doesn't want this to be true. First of all, from a fan standpoint, and second of all, from a job standpoint, this is going to suck ass to have to cover this. And if they do start vacating wins or they do start doing punishments or whatever the case may be, I don't want any part of that. That sucks. That's not what I want to cover for my job. And then Chris brought up the Baylor thing. If that is a precedent, I don't know to what depths. I don't know if they were recording video or whatever the case may be, but there was one, it was an assistant coach. It wasn't a low-level staffer, so that also changes things a little bit. But it was an assistant coach, went to a game off campus, scouted them, and he was suspended for a half. So do you just simply translate that over and suspend Connor Salians for 15 games? I mean, that's the transitive property. I mean, I don't know if it works that way. And then you throw in the video thing, you throw in the networking thing,
you throw in how long his salary's $55,000 a year. Who's footing the bill for all of these tickets? I mean, that's where I think, what's the precedent? I don't know, because I don't know that we've ever seen anything quite to this level. At least in my memory, I can't remember the NCAA ever uncovering anything quite like this. So I don't know that there's really anything to compare it to. So I think that's where a lot of the speculation and concern and questions come from, is like, okay, it sounds like they've got something. What is it all going to lead to? What is it going to lead? What's going to happen this year? To me, and I talked about this with Trent a little bit. He's our third writer. We talked a little bit about this offline. I'm just not sure, like with the Harbaugh thing, and the recruiting violations and pushing this off to the off season and trying to sort it out then and what the punishment was going to be. That made sense because it was nothing that it impacted the immediate, the right here, the right now. You're talking about games that were being scouted this season, tickets that were purchased to a game last weekend. And so if the NCAA has all this evidence and it's been occurring this year, I don't know how you just say, well, we'll deal with it after the season. To me, that doesn't seem like a position that the NCAA can take. I feel like whatever it is they're going to do is going to happen in the near term, because what they're being accused of has potentially had an impact on the outcome of games this season and will have an outcome or an impact on the outcome of future games this season. So that's where I'm really curious how the NCAA is going to handle this, because it feels like if they're going to do anything, it has to happen this season. I don't see how you can push it off to the. I mean, think about it, Brandon. If you're Penn State, if you're Ohio State, and you kind of you have a general idea of what you know now, are you okay with pushing it off to the end of the season? Like, do you feel comfortable with a team that's being accused of sending people to your games and taking it?
It happens. The there is a precedent for this with the NCAA, especially in basketball.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I understand.
I get your point.
But only one team is currently under investigation for it, and they happen to be, the favorite, the odds-on favorite to win the Big Ten and go to the national championship.
I totally understand your point, but the NCAA does not have a reputation for moving swiftly with stuff like this. That's
correct.
That's the only thing. Now, this year they've been poked and prodded a lot by one Jim Harbaugh. That might be a motivating factor to move a little quicker. But I don't know how fast they can prove this. I don't know how long the season's 2/3 of the way over. There's four regular season games left. It's not a lot of time. I just don't know if anything can or will happen this year. It does feel like this is moving quicker than normal when it comes to an NCAA investigation, but I don't know. I don't know what they'll really be able to do in this short amount of time. So again, I'm going to try to address some of the things that come up in the comments here, because obviously there's a lot of people in here. A lot of people want to get some stuff said, and I'll do the best I can with it. BK, look, man, it's not a non-topic. You can't go to other games and scout. That's a rule. Michigan did that. It's pretty clear. I'm talking, in fact, a little bit more now than I was last week for sure. But the 30 games, the 11 stadiums, the video evidence, like it happened. I don't know if everybody does do this. I don't know that. I like it's never been really talked about before. This Baylor thing, again, was one of the only times I didn't think it had ever happened before because I hadn't heard of it. And then the Baylor thing kind of came up today, and I'm like, all right, well, maybe it has happened a few times before, but for 2 or 3 seasons, 30 games, a network of people, a former military guy, I don't know if anything like this has ever happened.
And here's okay, agreed, Brant. Put that question back up, could you? Because I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. It's not a non-topic. It's the only topic right now surrounding Michigan football. If we were to come on here and only talk about the win over Michigan State or J.J. McCarthy's Heisman odds or Michigan's national championship odds, we wouldn't be doing what our job is. That would be towing the company line, and that's not what we do.
There's not 700 people in here right now just because Michigan's pretty good at football. Okay?
Correct. And like because we've done plenty of shows where they are pretty good at football, and this hasn't been the case, and we know that the numbers don't look like that. So that's that. Number 2, they're there to scout. The rules are pretty clear on what you can and can't do, and there is a little bit of gray area, I guess, if you're sending, operatives in that aren't quite affiliated. There's that. Yeah. But the bottom line is the rule is there to prevent things like this from happening. And then the last part of your statement that we can't be naive, I don't give a shit whether or not everybody does it or they don't. Not everybody is currently under investigation by the NCAA. Michigan is under investigation. So it does matter. It's not a non-topic. It's a big deal because it's quite possibly going to have an impact on what happens to the Michigan Wolverines this year. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how you feel about the rule, how you feel about the NCAA. We're all in agreement there. We're all on the same page. But the bottom line is the rule is there. The NCAA is investigating them. Now they have some evidence. Everything is trending toward ultimately a place that's not really great for Michigan football. And that's unfortunate.
Darren, yeah, there is a little bit of definitive proof. I still think that there's a little more that needs to happen for the hammer to completely fall. But, dude, they got Connor's name. They didn't pull that out of a hat. Like that. Yeah. That was a little bit of evidence in the first place. They had a specific name from a staff of 100+ people. Now they have evidence in a paper trail that he bought tickets to more than 30 games over the last 3 seasons. That's pretty good proof and evidence that something was afoot. I saw somebody earlier in the comments say, like, could have been just for friends, though. Why was he sending friends to Rutgers versus Ohio State? Why wasn't he bringing them to come on to Ann Arbor, man? It's a pretty good time here. We can watch a game this weekend. Yeah. Come on, dude. Like, don't do that. I know there's some dumb people out there. I'm hoping that the 650 of you in here are not those dumb people. Like, it's not that hard to kind of make the connections here as to why these things were happening. And again, 11 stadiums. They have video evidence of people in these seats that he has bought with cameras up recording what looks like the sideline. Now, where you might need some more definitive proof before anything actually gets to the point of punishment is, did what those people record on their cell phones make it to a paid staffer, i.e. Connor Stallions? Any of the assistant coaches, any other staffers that could then pump it into their film study and turn it into an on-field advantage. That I agree. There isn't definitive proof of that yet. But if you can't see that this is not going in a good direction, I don't know what to tell you. Yeah. I don't. And I'm not going to sit here and say, like, well, nothing's happened yet. Yeah, dude, some stuff has happened. I don't know if it's going to reach a punishment point, but at this, where we are now, it's just, Michigan's done some stuff they shouldn't have been doing. I'm very comfortable in saying that now.
Yeah, and it can be the case that a lot of other schools and programs across the country are doing the same exact thing, but if they're not under investigation and they're not in the hot seat, then none of that really matters right now. This is about Michigan, what the conduct was. And again, Stallions on a $55,000 a year salary. I mean, who was paying for all of the tickets like that? Those are still some of the things that I think the NCAA has to figure out and that are a part of this investigation. But if you're a Michigan fan, just don't don't do that. What is so easy and what I already see a ton of people doing, where just throw your hands up, sit back, and say it's all bullshit. Like we all feel the same way about the NCAA. We all feel, we get that. We've talked about it on the show before. They clearly have their target set on Jim Harbaugh. But the problem is when you give them something to latch onto, they're going to latch onto it. And this thing with Stalions, I mean, we talked about it on the last show. The fact that his name came, I mean, he was nobody was ever talking about Connor Stalions prior to this situation. Now all of a sudden he's at the center of this thing. The NCAA reported, the 30 games, the ticket purchases, the video content. You got to stop with it's all nothing. It's all a witch hunt. There's clearly something to it. It's really, in my mind at this point, just a matter of how bad is it? And then again, what is the punishment? And I don't see how you can delay punishment to the offseason given what we're talking about.
Devin, they sent people in person to go scout other games. That's the part that's against the rules. No, coaches can watch games on TV. They can sign steal during the game. They can scout and create any kind of report that they want from film throughout the course of the week. And look, I'm not going to sit here and say that this rule is kind of dumb. What the hell's the difference between whether you do it in person or if you watch it on TV? I'm with you on that, but the rule is the rule, and it's been a rule since 1994. Yes, it was put in place back then because there were poverty programs that couldn't afford to do it. Therefore, there was a large competitive imbalance. So they made a rule that said it was illegal to go scout games in person. So just follow that rule. Like that's why I've seen a lot of people ask the true $1 million question here. Why the hell did they do this? Correct. I don't know. I don't know why they did this. How stupid can you get? That's what I would say. Whether it was Connor Stalions acting on his own or if the coaches were in full knowledge of what was going on, I don't care. Why did this take place? That's a bigger question to ask, in my opinion, at this point.
And I agree with Cody in the comments here, but I know that it's easy because you want to combat it, or you want to sort of, anytime you see something that you don't agree with, we want to make sure that we can address it. But there's also people in here that have a level head about this, that are approaching it, that just, maybe have a statement they want to make or something that they've said to add to the conversations. I want to be clear that, I can see you rubbing your forehead right now, Brandon. I'm not even sure that you're listening to what I'm saying. It's not all ridiculousness in here, and I think that that's worth acknowledging, that there's also people in here that are approaching it with a level head. So I don't just want to pull out the questions and the focus on the people who are struggling to grasp what's happening right now, because it's not fair to the people who do have a level head.
Well, but it's like, I feel like I don't need to pull the people who are understanding.
No, but I think they just they also want, they're adding to the conversation. They're adding to the conversation that you and I are trying to have. I don't want it to make an hour of, us combating every boneheaded comment that we see in here, because there's reasonable people as well.
Well, I mean, this is the part also I just don't know if there's any way to do it, because I've seen several people like, what are the infractions? When might it happen? What might it? I have no idea. I have no idea. Like I said, the one precedent that I pulled, the Baylor situation, it was an on-staff. As far as the way that's worded, it was an on-field assistant. So it would be like Sharon Moore or Grant Newsom or Jay Harbaugh going to scout a game. That's not what's happening here. So I don't know if the punishment even would translate the same. And then again, you throw into the fact that it looks like it was a network of people. It was over a much longer course of time. It was many more games, several stadiums. I don't know if you can just say like, okay, well, that coach got half a game, so Connor Stalions gets 15. I don't know if it would work that way. I don't know if it would go up the ladder because of how long it went on, or, the depth of it. I don't know. I think everybody at this point is completely grasping at straws when it comes to trying to even take a guess at what punishment might come from this, if it is proven to be, as bad as it looks. Because again, all signs point to something bad. I thought of this earlier, and I saw somebody else comment the same way. It feels like the OJ thing. Like, everybody knew OJ did it, but they couldn't quite prove it, so he's playing golf right now, right? I mean, like, that's kind of how that went. This is I mean, that was a double murder. That was probably a little insensitive to compare the two. But the point is, extensive evidence to show that something probably happened, but at the end of the day, they couldn't prove it, and so nothing did happen. That's where we're at right now with this. It really, really looks like Michigan did all this stuff, and I'm probably fine with saying they did. But until they can prove that whatever those dudes did that were on-site scouting, if they can't prove that they used whatever they got at those games to give to a paid staffer, I don't think anything comes of this.
The shitty part about it is we live in a very connected world now. And I know that the NCAA asked for his laptop. I know that when people are at certain games and you're recording certain things, there's always something tracking what it is. And I'm not trying to be conspiracy theory guy here, but the reality is, like, you know, we carry around these devices with us everywhere we go, and it's easily tracked. And when you send things electronically, like, all of that stuff can be fixed or found if you're sloppy. And again, the fact that he used his actual name to purchase these tickets leads me to believe that there wasn't a lot going on behind the scenes to try to cover his tracks. Joey Clater, I think that's how you say his last name, from the Facebook page at 6:29 p.m. I'm not sure if you can find his comment, but I think, you know, so one of the biggest questions is, what is the evidence? What exactly is the evidence? And when Michigan gets it, when are we going to be able to see the totality of what they're being accused of? Another question is, what is the consequence of what Michigan's being accused of if there is sufficient evidence to prove it? And Joey's question, I think a lot of people are asking at this point too, is, you know, what did Jim Harbaugh know? This to me doesn't seem like a thing that he could be completely in the dark in. And again, I don't want to accuse and speculate too much, but given how long it's been taking place, I would be surprised if he didn't know anything about it. But I think it's a good question. Would firing Connor Stalions be good enough, or is Jim now gone no matter what? I personally don't think that if they were, you know, if they come out tomorrow and they say Connor Stalions has been fired, to me, that almost lends credibility to what they're being accused of. Right? Am I wrong on that? Like, if he loses his job over this, that gives credibility that what the NCAA is accusing Michigan of is, you know, there was something there. And I don't think that firing Stalions would be enough to appease the NCAA. I mean, Jim took a 3-game suspension to start off the year, and the NCAA is still going to come after him during the offseason for the recruiting violations. So I certainly don't think that firing a low-level staffer for something that supposedly happened over the course of 2.5 years is going to be enough to satisfy the NCAA's appetite.
Yeah, and there are different, you know, there are different wordings of things in the bylaws when it comes to the head coach, and if things happen on their watch, it's almost as if they did it themselves, the guilty by association type of thing. And then, I mean, beyond that, it's like, I mean, dude, Jim Harbaugh has so many times over the years, and his guy, Bo Schembechler, has so many times gone out of their way to call out stuff like this. You can't. It's hard to beat the cheaters.
To beat the cheaters, yeah.
You know, if you're the head coach,
that's the other thing I want to say as a Michigan fan. We have, just as fans, part of Jim Harbaugh's appeal was he didn't mind calling out the SEC and some of the bullshit that you saw down there and some of the cheating and all the Michigan fans were like, yeah, that's right, they cheat. We do things right. We do things by the book. And now that this has come out, it's been like, well, everybody does it. You know what I mean? So you kind of, if you're a Michigan fan, like, take a deep breath. And if you are who you've claimed to be all these years during the Harbaugh regime, you can't all of a sudden just switch it up and be like, well, it's fine to play that game too. Like, the whole deal behind Michigan, and Brandon just referenced it, Harbaugh's quote, it's hard to beat the cheaters. Like, that's what Michigan has sort of stood on, is like doing things the right way. And this doesn't scream doing things the right way. This scream, you know, again, we all think the rule's stupid. None of us are big fans of the NCAA, but it is what it is. The rule's there. And if the NCAA has evidence to punish Michigan, feels like they're going to find a way to do it.
Yeah, this is look, Penny, there are ways to get out of stuff, okay? And I've actually thought about this. There's a lot of shit that goes on the sidelines of a football game. And when I used to shoot photos, this is several seasons ago, I was covering recruiting. So I would be on the sidelines shooting photos of recruits, which is actually technically against the rules.
You're part of the problem. You are part of the problem.
I would have the rather large woman who was in charge of compliance down there, purposely stand in front of me, and she would come up and say, "Give me your camera." And I would say, "This is a public football game. I can take photos of whatever I want." She's like, "You're taking photos of recruits." I'm like, "No, I'm not. I'm taking photos of that guy in the stands right there." Like, so if the signs are in the video, but so is 100 other things, I do wonder about that. I wonder, because like if I took a video of the signs, if I'm trying to steal signs on the sidelines, but my video is this big, and I also have the players walking over here, and Harbaugh's over there, or whatever, the other coaches over there, or this, that, and the other, people in the stands, and I send it to Chris, unless there's like actual paper trail of me being like, "Yo, check out the signs that they're sending at 2 minutes and 45 seconds." Like, can you actually prove that what was on that video is being? Again, I think you're getting to a place that I don't want to be in. I don't really like the idea of Michigan skirting this off like a technicality, but I do recognize that that's very possible.
Let me ask you this, and maybe this is my own ignorance here, but it's not like we're operating in a court of law here, like it's federal court or something like that. We're talking about the NCAA.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have to have concrete, definitive evidence in order to hand down a punishment, or can they have what they believe is good enough evidence to issue what they think is a fair punishment based on what they have? I mean, there's a difference there, right? The NCAA can pretty much hand down whatever punishment it decides is necessary. Now, Michigan can obviously fight that and can escalate it and take it further, but I don't think the NCAA, I don't think the NCAA, at least initially, like I said, we're not in federal court here. You're not presenting to a jury. You've got some evidence that you think is good enough. You're going to present it to Michigan, and you're going to hand down whatever punishment you think, is deserving.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. You would think that if you're talking about possibly vacating wins or suspending people or people losing their jobs, that you'd have to have pretty definitive evidence.
A perfect example, and it's not the same thing. So listen, this is apples and oranges, but it's also like, remember when the whole Penn State thing went down? And the focus was on Joe Paterno and what did he know and what exactly happened. And the NCAA did whatever they did anyway, right? Like they knew something had happened. And I get it's a much more serious allegation. But overall point was, you didn't really know what Joe Paterno knew, what he didn't know. And I'm kind of relating that to Jim Harbaugh. Like, who knows what he did know, what he didn't know? It just feels like the NCAA feels like they have something. And if they feel like they have something, I don't think they need to be able to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt like you would in normal court to be able to hand down punishment.
Yeah, you may be right about that. And Randy, I'm not sure if you're talking to me or us or someone else in the room, but I said that like 30 minutes ago. So just chill out a little bit. A little aggressive there. Yes, Connor Stalions got hired officially in 2022, but he's been helping with the program for the better part of a decade in a volunteer basis when he would come back from being a student at the Naval Academy and different stuff like that. I literally said that a little bit ago. So anyway, emotions are running a little high. I could feel people getting a little bit testy. I don't really know if that's what needs to happen, but the point is, it's only been when did this all drop? Was it Wednesday night? Thursday morning?
Thursday was when it dropped. Thursday was when the Yahoo Sports report came out. Wednesday is when the Big Ten notified the other Big Ten opponents, the future opponents for the University of Michigan. That was when Michigan was notified that they were under investigation. That was on Wednesday. So, it does seem to be moving forward pretty quickly. Michigan found out on Wednesday they were under investigation. Thursday, the Yahoo Sports report came out. Then Connor Stalions' name got dropped later Thursday night, early Friday morning. And then on Friday, he was suspended with pay. And then here we are on Monday with some of this reported evidence that's out there that's going to be presented to Michigan this week. So yeah, it's moving pretty fast, I would say, for the NCAA for sure.
Yeah. So, and my point also was to say, like, it's only been like 4 or 5 days and a lot of stuff has come out. Like, I just keep thinking like another day or two, more evidence is coming out. And they've already said that the video evidence is going to be, I don't know if it'll be publicly available, but it's going to be seen by the people who need to see it, in terms of people sitting in those seats bought by Connor Stalions, with what's been reported as holding a phone up for the whole game, recording the sidelines of different teams. And the fact, again, God, it looks bad. This past weekend, Penn State, Ohio State, two really big opponents left on Michigan's schedule. He bought tickets for that game. They tracked the seats, checked the seats on surveillance in the stadium, and they were empty. That's pretty good evidence that something's going on. I don't know.
It seems like that would be a hard thing to track, though. You've been to a big sporting event where there's 110,000 people there. Like, how do you know that seat's empty? Is it because the ticket wasn't checked in at entry? Is that how they know the seats were empty?
I mean, there could probably be a lot of different ways. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, Michigan. I don't know. I'm trying to think of what those stadium seats.
I mean, you're
look
sitting
like.
on
Michigan.
the
It would be
seats, if you get if you get a little room there, you're just scooting a bit over. And
Michigan. It would be really hard to do with the bleacher seats that are about this wide. But I don't know. The fact that he he used his own name and he's on record buying 30 plus tickets over the last couple of years, though that's already not a great look. We do have some super chats. I did want to put this up there. Dave, sorry, we kind of already addressed this. Lots of people asked it. I have no idea. I don't know how there's any way to answer that at this point, other than the fact that it does seem to be moving along pretty quickly. And Chris, I think you said it right at the beginning. It feels like they want to do something this season, but
I don't see how you can't. If what they're being accused of is
true,
that's fair
and the
NCAA believes it, I don't know how you can't do something this year. I don't know. This doesn't feel like a situation where if it's true and if they have what they think is enough evidence to confirm it, how this is something you can push off to the offseason. It feels like it needs to be, which is why I think the Big Ten took the step of A, notifying all of Michigan's future opponents, and B, putting out the statement that they put out. It wasn't like it was something you could sit on because it was impacting the very next game and the game after that and the game after that. So everything in my gut is telling me that if the NCAA is going to do something about this, it's going to have to happen this season. That's why I'm so fucking irritated by this, because they didn't have to do this, Brandon. They didn't need to do this. They had the best offense in the country, the best quarterback in the conference, certainly, arguably in the country, the best defense in the country. They didn't need to do this bullshit. They would have been just fine. They're 8-0 without Connor Stallions ever having any part of that coaching staff. They're 8-0 right now. But yet the conversation is, will they even be able to finish this season? What's the punishment going to be? Not the fact that they're a legitimate national championship contender. Everything is tainted no matter what comes of this NCAA investigation, no matter how you cut it. And that sucks, man. It sucks for these players.
David, I'm not sure if you just forgot to put a question. Thank you for the donation. If you want to throw it in there again, we'll try to catch it. I mean, the comments are coming pretty fast with this many people in here, but thank you for that. And BK, I've seen a lot of your comments. You've been a little aggressive. I'm not sure you're really grasping the seriousness of this. First of all, this is not a yes or no question.
It doesn't matter.
Yes or no? How many programs do you think do this? Yes. I mean, okay. It's not a yes or no question. I don't care how many programs do it. I do think that of the 130 plus Division I programs, it's probably happened before. But what does it matter? Is any other team in trouble for it right now, or is it just Michigan? Like that? Who cares?
It's the same deal as like what I said on the other show. You're getting pulled over for 85 and a 70, and you're asking the cop how many other people speed on this highway. At that moment, it doesn't fucking matter because you're the only one getting the ticket. Like, it doesn't matter how often it happens elsewhere.
I've used this example before too. It's like the middle school defense mechanism. I would get a kid in my classroom. I'd be like, "Why are you doing that?" And the first thing they would do would be like, "Huh." I'm like, "What are you pointing? I'm talking to you. Why are you pointing at another person? I don't care. I saw you. I'm talking to you. Man up."
With my two kids all the time. You yell at one kid and they're like, well, such and such did so. And it's like, no, I'm talking about you and what you're doing. And that's what the NCAA is doing with Michigan.
All right, Dave Matterson. It would be heartbreaking to, I mean, dude, that's not even heartbreaking.
And listen, we're all in that same boat, Dave. I would be devastated. I have spent the vast majority of this year basically mapping out the way I think the year is going to go, making plans to be in the college football playoff, making plans to be in Houston for the national championship, going back to Indy for the Big Ten championship. Like, that's all on my agenda. That's how I envision the year going. For this to sort of throw a wrench into that. And again, for the guys that came back, Mike Sainristil, Blake Corum, Zach Zinner, Trevor Keegan, like all these guys that came back to finish what they started. I really feel for those guys, man. It's a shitty place to be, but if you're a Michigan fan and you're just backing yourself into a corner and deny. I don't know that that's where you want to be either.
Oh man, Tizzy, I don't know if I could say it as point blank as you did here, but I'd be lying to you if I said it didn't cross my mind a little bit. Like if TCU was picked to be like 4th or 6th or something in the Big 12 last year, like Michigan didn't go scout them. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. They were not on anybody's radar to make the college football playoff. And when you've got a month,
Stallions would have sent somebody to the Big 12 championship game.
No, because even at that point, I don't think it was a guarantee that if they won, they were going to make the playoff. I remember thinking like, well, there it is. Like they lost. They're not in. Somebody else is going. I can't remember the exact way that it played out now at this point. But, God, I hate that it's even.
All right, let's do a hypothetical here. Let's
hate that it's even remotely on the brain that you could think that.
Let's do this, Brandon. Let's do a hypothetical. Let's just say whatever happens with the NCAA doesn't happen until the end of the year. Let's just say that that's the case. Michigan goes on to beat Penn State, Purdue, obviously, Penn State, Maryland, Ohio State, wins the Big Ten, gets to the college football playoff, wins it all this year, and then whatever happens with the Big Ten happens during the offseason. How much are you going to care? How much is it going to ruin what happens this year if that's the way the season plays out?
It would bother me quite a bit. It really would. It would bother me quite a bit. I mean, I would, because if it's officially and they take like, those wins off the books.
That's what I'm saying. So that's part of this question. And for everybody out there in the comments, because I can see it's not going to bother them at all. That's part of the deal is the NCAA has definitive evidence. You're talking about wins vacated, all of that shit. How much of that will matter if Michigan goes on to win the national championship this year? How much will that bother you?
I mean, I'll still enjoy the hell out of it, and it'll be a lot of fun to be there and do it and photograph it and document it and cover it. Like, don't get me wrong. But then after the fact, if they took that away, like that would suck. Like that would suck. Yeah. Because you couldn't even like use it in an argument anymore. You know what I mean? Like, well, they won a title. No, they didn't. Like, damn it. Like,
I mean, what happens anytime you bring up 1997? The first thing you get back from anybody is, well, technically it's a half championship. It's not even a full national championship. And then here this year, again, there's going to be something negative attached to it, potentially. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm
so pissed off. It was so goddamn unnecessary. So unnecessary.
Yeah, it just sucks. It just sucks that it's even a thing. That's what I'm saying.
And you know what? Pull the tape, and I know we haven't talked about the game from the weekend because it feels like it's so far away now. But watch the way J.J. McCarthy, some of the throws he made, some of the movements within the pocket, the way that he escaped, defensive pressure. None of that has to do with stealing plays. He's just an elite quarterback who's really, really good at what he does. But again, that's not the conversation. That's not the topic. Nobody's talking about that anymore. It's this type of shit. And yeah, it's going to feel very, I don't know, man. It's almost worse than Fab Five-ish. I know Ron Thomas sort of brought up that, but they weren't really cheat. I mean, paying shit. If Michigan got busted paying play, I don't give a shit about that. But the sign stealing thing and the kind of the accusations of cheating, like that bothers me.
Yeah. Put Tizzy's comment back up there. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Did they make Baylor vacate anything from, you start talking about like affecting the integrity of the game, like
Baylor, right, was about one game, right?
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken, it wasn't about 30 plus.
Right. Boy, oh boy. I don't want this to be what we're doing.
No.
And look, we're at 50 minutes of talking about only this because of the depths of it. How serious it could be.
I'll just point it out and I'll say it. Michigan fans went from, we do it the right way to fuck it, everybody else does it real quick. And if you don't see the hypocrisy in that, I don't know what to do for you. But to me, the doing it the right way thing, even as a fan, like you kind of hung your hat on it. And it was something that you would lean on when Michigan was struggling. And now that they're doing well, again, it was a talking point. Like Michigan is doing it the right way. And to go from that to immediately, well, they're doing the same thing everybody else does. the only way you make that leap is if you're a super fan who just doesn't want to acknowledge what's potentially right in front of your face. And that's fine. I get it. It's sports. There's super fans out there. That's the way the world is.
I don't remember. I just wanted to see is this accurate, Jeremy? He said that he has video evidence of us saying that NIL wasn't an excuse.
Video evidence?
Video evidence. Ironically, wasn't that NIL wasn't an excuse for bad recruiting, and that we were the cheerleaders of the Ward Manual fan club. Like, I don't think I'd like to see the video, sir, because
cheerleaders of the Ward Manual fan club. I
don't even really pretend to know what Ward Manual really does, so I can't imagine I was supporting him all that much. And as far as NIL is concerned, I've been banging the same drum since the day it went live that Michigan needed to be better at it, and we've put up a video of Juwan Howard saying forever, like, be better. Where's the collective? We want this. We want. I don't know about that, Jeremy. I'd like to see the video evidence that you say you have.
I would love to see that, because I distinctly remember a handful of times saying, throw the bag at X, Y, and Z, bring them here. I don't care what it takes. Bagging on Michigan's NIL program. Yeah, I would certainly like to see that video.
Yeah, and we also had like a long part of a show once upon a time where we accused the NIL collective that did exist for being absolute slapdicks for making the fans pay money for. We're like, what are you doing?
The fans are footing the bill, right? Where's the collective? Where are the boosters? Where's the big money? Like, don't show me an autograph line where you're charging 1,000 fans $100 a piece to get in and sign something. Like, where's the big money? Yeah, I need to see. What was his name? Jeremy? I need to see that video. Send me the video. Where was he at? Was he on the Facebook page, the YouTube page?
Where was he? Page. He's
the
back
YouTube
again.
page. You need to shoot over the video. We need to see that, and we still appreciate you, Jeremy. But I need to see
he's
that
not video.
being
a dick about it. But I that's why I said, I'm like, I just don't think that's accurate. And also, I remember very specifically we focused on like when NIL was the thing, and they're like they pumped out this big number, and we were like, yeah, cool. That means each player gets like $9. Like, yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know,
Ward Manual fan club and boasting about NIL. I don't think any of that's true.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Anyway, whatever. Look, we have done over 200 shows. We've probably said some dumb shit along the way. I'm not going to say we're above that. But
I feel like I know my lanes too.
Yeah,
and where I stand on things. I can't see that being the case.
Yeah. Cody, here's the thing. This is why I don't really even care about that angle. This is fans. This is what fans do. When their school fucks up, oh well. When another school fucks up, you go to their neck. It doesn't matter if it's Michigan to Ohio State to Michigan, Michigan State to Michigan, Georgia to Florida, Alabama to Auburn. They're all the same. That's why that's one of the things that pisses me off the most about Spartan Radio is when they take pot shots at the Michigan fan base. I'm like, you mouth-breathing sons of bitches are the same exact people whenever you get your opportunity to do the same thing. I don't really care that they do it. But to point it out like Michigan fans are some weird group that's way different than everybody else is so stupid. So stupid. Every single fan base is exactly the same. I know that because I used to work with national recruiting guys. So like the Southeast recruiting guy would cover recruiting for Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, Auburn, all the schools in the Southeast, and their fan bases, all of them hated the recruiting guy. Like, he can't be wrong about every single program. It's just like, it's such a weird thing when people act surprised by what fans do. Like, that's what it's literally short for fanatics. They're meant to act stupid and irrational and support their team to the death and go at other teams to the death. That's what you do.
Yeah, I mean that's why I think there's a large segment of the fan base that you're never going to convince that anything was done wrong. And even if it is brought out, it's just going to be, we already see it in here. It's everybody else does it. So what's the big deal? But again, the difference with Michigan fans is we have all spent, 8+ years pounding our chests about doing things the right way. You can't all of a sudden just veer to the right and say, well, now we're doing the same shit that everybody else is doing. Like it's a complete 180. And if you want to take that route, that's fine. But you also have to acknowledge that it's pretty hypocritical given where most Michigan fans have stood over the last, 9 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I just this just blows. This is a bye week. It should be chill. Speaking of a bye week,
an ass beating of Michigan State. Not since 1985 have the Wolverines shut out the Spartans in East Lansing. J.J. McCarthy moves to number 1 in the Heisman favorite odds. Michigan passes Georgia in the national championship odds. That's all the shit that I would love to be just. You talk about slurping, Brandon. I'll go full fan mode. I'm the first to get in the slurp line. And we can't even talk about that shit today because this stuff matters more right now. It just matters more.
I have a whole button on my soundboard just for when Chris starts to slurp.
I will go super fan in an instant, but I do my best to try to remain as objective as I possibly can, just because that's like the professional thing to do. You know, the fan in me wants to call bullshit on all of this. But the reality is that, yeah, if it was happening elsewhere, I'd look at it and be like, fucking cheaters. Look at it. If it was Ryan Day under the microscope right now, I'd be going in on his ass.
Oh,
Same way we did with Mel Tucker.
I was just going to say, did we not do that a couple weeks ago with Mel Tucker? I mean, it's impossible not to do it. It's impossible not to do it. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We got, I don't know, 5 minutes left. Do we get to an hour? Should we talk Michigan State at all, or is it a moot point right now? I mean,
all this shit just took the interest out of it for me. What do you want to talk? What should we talk about? How great Michigan was? Cool, they cheated. 49-0, cool, they cheated.
I was writing an article.
Cool, he knew the defense.
I wrote an article about J.J. McCarthy today from the press conference, and as I was writing it, I'm like, this sucks. No one cares. This sucks. No one's going to read this. Who cares? Yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough that this is dominating the headlines. Michigan is on a bye this week, so you can't even talk about an upcoming game. This is all there is. Harbaugh skipped media today, by the way.
Yeah, I kind of raised my eyebrow when I saw the email come out and his name wasn't on there. That
sends JJ out there, sends Braden McGregor out there, but Harbaugh is nowhere to be seen. I don't know about that. I mean, granted, all he would have been asked about is this, and all he would have said is, I can't comment because it's an ongoing investigation. Yeah. So, like, it wouldn't have really been very meaningful, but, like, the fact that he just flat out didn't show, I was kind of like, all right, well, there's that. Yeah, and then so we'll see, when next Monday, he'll be back out there because there will be a game to prepare for.
Presumably.
Well, I'm not ready to say all that yet, but.
Well, I'm not saying because Michigan or the NCAA would do anything, but I mean, he doesn't have to come out and talk to the media on Mondays.
Well, he's contractually obligated to do so, but
is he?
Yeah, dude. You think he does that? You think if he had the option to not do it, he would do that?
I didn't know that there was
oh yeah, he has to talk to the media. Yeah. He would be one that would not if he did. If they came to him today and said
you're saying he went against his obligation today?
I think with a bye week, it's probably up in the air. I believe in the past, I thought in the past we didn't have any press conferences on a bye week.
Yeah,
I thought we were not going to have any this week, and then we have one Monday and Tuesday, but not on Wednesday. Usually we get assistant coaches on Wednesday. They're also not coming out to talk, but we get players. We had JJ and Braden today. We get players tomorrow, and that's it. So I don't know. It just all blows. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do it. I don't want to talk about this. I want to talk about Michigan drilling Michigan State.
Doesn't even feel like 8-0 right now. Like it doesn't have the feeling. It's taking all the wind out of my sails, Brandon.
Pernicious myth is back in the house. This is worse than the Astros and Patriots combined. Former players, this is dumb. Look, we could do another entire hour about why this rule is antiquated, not very serious, shouldn't even be a thing. I mean, I'm not. You're preaching to the choir, but I think I could also combat it with, then why be stupid enough to do it?
Right.
You've got hundreds of hours of film. You can watch whatever you want to watch. You can break it down however you want to break it down. Just don't go to the games to do it. It doesn't seem like that hard of a rule to follow. Whether you think it's a stupid rule or not, that's neither here nor there. Why do it? I don't get it. I don't get that. I think it was it Jordan Lewis? I think somebody might have put in the comments. Jordan Lewis said on their all 22 tape, you can see the entire sidelines the whole time. The same footage that you could get from recording a game in person, you can get within the rules. I don't understand it.
Not as good as you can get from a dude in like row 20 with his iPhone.
I mean, maybe. That to me is strange. I'm
trying to listen. I'm trying not to be so down on it, but right now, I mean, just given the latest reports, I don't know. I don't know how you feel good about it. How do you feel about how do you feel good about the current state of Michigan football right now? Given what we read today and what we heard, it's tough, man, because it feels like inevitably something is going to throw a wrench into what was supposed to be and what looks like it's going to be an incredible season. You just kind of feel like something is going to prevent that from happening. And the more you hear, the more that comes out, it doesn't sound like it's getting better for Michigan. It sounds like it's going in a direction that none of us want to see.
Yeah. Mark, maybe. I mean, we never really, I don't know if we ever specifically said straight front to back what the rules were that were supposedly broken.
Front
we talked
to back?
about a lot. Yeah. I mean, just, read it clear as day, like right to the end of the rule. One is that I know we did put this one up because I put it up earlier as a screenshot. Off-campus, in-person scouting of future opponents is prohibited. In other words, you can't go to a game that your team's not playing in. You can't.
But now the gray area, we know Stallions didn't go,
right?
But the gray area, right, is having other people go on your behalf.
I don't think so because right there, it doesn't say who can or can't. You can't do it. Period. In other parts of the rules, they do use that. I forget what the term was. I texted it to some people
because they define member of the staff. Like I know they go into
institutional staff member is the term that's used. In other parts of the bylaws, it says like institutional staff member cannot, or institutional staff members can't do this. For the in-person scouting bylaw, the one that it doesn't say who. So that, to me, that's just a blanket statement. It doesn't matter who you are. You can't do it. You can't go scout off campus in person. So that's one rule. And one of the other rules is you cannot use any video capturing device to record signs or what's going on the sidelines, which that part is the real part I don't understand because you can do it on TV or with the all-22 film. I don't know what advantage you gain by doing it in person. I really don't.
Oh, which is why sending somebody and putting your name on it is just such unless the only thing I can think of, Brandon, is that the dude legitimately didn't know that what he thought it was brilliant. He didn't know what he was doing was against the rules, which could be the case.
Could be.
Maybe he didn't know. Otherwise, why put your name on it? There's so much about this that doesn't make any sense.
And Mark, the person at the center of all this is Connor Stallions. He's a low-level recruiting analyst. He gets paid $55,000 a year. To put into perspective, I mean, we're not talking about a high-level staff member who's getting $500,000. I mean, this is a young guy. He was at the Naval Academy. He's got a military background, and reportedly, this was like his only job was to do this: the sign stealing, code breaking, etc. Like he wasn't actually really involved in recruiting all that much at all. Apparently, that's what his reputation around the building became. Allegedly, yeah. And he used his own name to buy tickets for at least 30 games in 11 different stadiums for the last 3 seasons, right? 21, 22, and this season.
Yeah.
And all of that stuff is true. Now, all of those things by themselves don't break any rules, but if you start to combine them together and what was recorded at those games was then used by paid staffers, that's where the rule is broken.
Right.
And that's the part that technically hasn't been proven yet. But again, I'm just not comfortable with the way it's coming together. I'm just not. I'm real enough. I'm a realist. It's real enough to me to say that something was done that shouldn't be done. But I'm not the one that has to prove it or drop the hammer on them. And Chris, you made a really good point. I think we can maybe end with that earlier. that you're not quite sure if they have to prove it like you do in court, for a crime. This is a rule in a sport of a game.
The NCAA seems to operate
do whatever they want.
Right. Pretty much do whatever the hell they want. So I'm not, I don't know that it has to be conclusive, like you're in a court of law and you have to prove to a jury or whatever it is. Like we're talking about the NCAA.
So Chris just kind of said this. It's not impossible. I find it very hard to believe that he would do that.
Yeah.
Given the fact that he doesn't make that much money, that he's got a network of people, 30 games, 11 stadiums. And then, oh, by the way, him figuring out the information by himself does nothing. He's got to give it to the staff. Correct. I find it very hard to believe that he would be doing it by himself, but it's not an impossible thought. Pernicious Myth, again, thank you. I'm not willing to convict without me neither. I could sit here and say that Michigan probably did some shit they shouldn't be doing, but if you can't prove it, then you can't prove it. Like, what are you going to do? And that's where, again, back to Chris's point, I don't know if the NCAA has to prove it beyond reasonable doubt like you do in a court of law when you're talking about crimes or, putting people in jail. It's not the same thing, but I don't know how that works. Justin, thank you for your contribution. Just a hypothetical. If the NCAA has a strong case, why are they leaking all of this info to the press? That was an issue Chris and I had with stuff last week as well, right? I mean, there's a little bit more hard evidence now, but last week it was much worse.
I would say, Justin, think of, I don't know, go back the last 10 years and don't just limit it to sports. Just all you got to do is go back 10 years. Don't limit it to sports. Think, how many times have you ever heard about something for the first time when like the organization leading the investigation brought it to light? Like, what I'm saying is leaks are just part of, whether it's sports, politics, finance, whatever it is. Like, this is the world we live in now. People leak information and the case gets tried in the court of public opinion before anything official is ever brought to the table. That's just the nature of the world that we live in. So I don't think the fact that it's been leaked, like I've seen some people try to build that narrative that the NCAA is leaking this slowly out to the public so that they can try to shift public perception, and make Michigan guilty before anything comes to the table. I don't think that's the case. I think there's just people that leak shit to outlets because those are the relationships that are there.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. I mean, this is no different than befriending some. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. I mean,
inside info. Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. This is no, Pete Thamel, Dan Wetzel. I don't know these guys, but they've got a friend. They've got a friend in the NCAA. Dude, what are you hearing about? This shit's crazy. And they say something off the record. Oh, can I say this or can I not? Dude, Dan Wetzel and Pete Thamel might know 50 more things that their buddies said you can't say anything about this. Right. This part's okay. This part's not. I mean, yeah, going back to when I covered recruiting, I would talk to a parent. I would talk to a coach. Hey, so-and-so's committing to Michigan in May, but don't say anything. You can tell them that they're his leader, that this, whatever. Like, that's the nature of investigative reporting, and that's the nature of writing a story on said information. Sometimes it's much more serious. Sometimes it's not very serious at all, but that's just how this stuff works. I mean, why are they leaking it? I don't know, because they're friends with the person writing the story, because they feel like they could climb up the ladder a little bit by giving some some juicy information. I mean, who the hell knows why it's happening, but it's happening, and it always happens. I don't really think it's not anything weird. And then BK, thank you for the $1.
Appreciate you.
Dude, yeah, still a lot of people in here, still a lot of comments coming pretty fast. Anyway, Chris, I don't know. I mean, how do we want to put a bow on this thing? We're an hour and 10 minutes in. I mean, this has obviously been the only thing we've talked about. And I guess one silver lining is that we don't have a game to talk about this week. So it's not like we're, skipping very valuable burning questions or predictions or whatever. We don't have a game to worry about on Saturday. So this is going to be it. This is going to be the topic. And what did we decide, dude? We're going to do a show on Wednesday, but not on Friday, right? Unless...
Well, yeah, I mean, the show on Wednesday could also be up in the air as well. There was a date change, and I'm going to be at an NIL event in downtown Ann Arbor. Right. I know that you're going to be out of town.
Well, I'm going to be in my hometown, and the internet is horrible there.
Yeah,
so
you're going to be.
We're trying to make it work, but
out on the farm. So we'll have to, what I don't want to do is spend an entire evening talking about the same shit,
Right.
And I think by Wednesday, the win over Michigan State, it already feels like forever ago at this point anyway. Like we haven't even talked about it on the show, and I'm not sure that we are going to talk about it at this point. So we'll take a look at the schedule, and I think if something big develops, and obviously we're going to do everything we can to hop on and talk about it as soon as possible. But I think this is a good time for people to just sort of take a break and digest everything coming in, and to use the company line, let it all play out. Just let it all play out. See what happens.
Keep the main thing the main thing.
Keep the main thing the main thing. Like whatever it is that gets you through, like do that for the next few days and see where this all leads. But
I mean,
I don't know how to put a bow on this because honestly, I just have a bad taste in my mouth. That's where I'm at. I don't feel good about it.
It's definitely an open book still. Chapters are still being written. We're not putting a bow or a pin in it just yet because it's not concluded. Like, I mean, dude, if tomorrow the video drops where you've got 10 dudes with Michigan phone cases recording the stuff and taking notes, and then you can see them calling, and then they happen to have a person next to him say, yeah, he was talking to a guy named Connor. like we'll do a show. But I do think at this point, like if we jump, like for example, if we jump back on again Wednesday, it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be all the same thing we're talking about now, with no new information and no game to talk about. I don't really see the point. But yeah, to Chris's point, to what I just said, if some monstrous news break, like today was a big deal. So I moved the show up an hour. We just did an hour and 11 minutes. We didn't even talk about one thing on the field. We'll do it again if we need to. But as of right now, I'm ready to unplug a little bit because this sucks.
It's a turd.
Yeah.
It's a giant turd. And yet here Michigan is 8-0, number 2 in the country, Heisman front runner, betting favorite to win it all. Doesn't feel like that here on a Monday evening.
Oh, dude, doesn't that suck, man?
Blows.
I need a drink. You've been drinking.
No words.
We said a lot of words. We said a lot of words.
Appreciate everybody for hopping in tonight, though. It was a pretty
will
live
say
show.
that.
Appreciate all you guys for sure.
Huge audience. I think the most we've had all year. We almost clipped 700 people, and some people were donating, which we always appreciate. So yeah, that's fantastic. And we definitely like talking. I love looking up there, seeing like 645 as opposed to like 80.
But even I appreciate but the 80 are the real ones. You know what I mean? Those are the people that carry it. But I appreciate all the newcomers as well.
I think of that one meme or that GIF or whatever that was out there a long time ago, where it's like those 3 followers. Whenever I tweet something, there's a guy standing on top of a roof like DJing, and there's like 3 people down on the floor like dancing.
It's what it is. Tonight, and a lot of these are like this. It's a group therapy session. We're all just trying to make sense of it, deal with it together, and I think we did as best as we could tonight.
There it is. Oh, look, I see some people saying sorry you had to do this. Or nah, man,
we love it.
We know what it is. We know what it is when we're about to jump in here. It's going to be that way. What do you think Jim Harbaugh is doing right now?
Not giving a fuck.
Just drinking milk or something.
Chilling. Watching YouTube TV. Oblivious. Just enjoying life.
He's watching Law and Order, something like that. All right, everybody. We'll see you when we see you.